Okay. Hi. Hello. Can you hear me? Buenos días. Me llamo Vittorio Sportelli, soy farmacéutico y trabajo por Elsevier. Voy a disculparme, dicho, hace 6 meses que el doctor Guerrero me invitó a estar aquí y hoy comenzó a aprender español. Pero hoy no es bueno para tener una presentación, es muy por una conversación, ¿no? Entonces voy a hablar inglés durante mi presentación. Pero si tienen preguntas, pueden preguntarme en español. Y gracias por aquí. Y pienso que la manera como hablo, soy italiano, es claro. Thank you again for this. I joined Elsevier 9 years ago, and my previous experiences lies in the pharmaceutical industry and as a pharmacist, and I've been working on epidemiology and health economics before joining Elsevier. Today, I would like to share with you a little bit more, building on what Dr. Guerrero has just mentioned, more conversational, bringing food for thought, to open a discussion, possibly, and think of artificial intelligence. Now, when we start and we see people, speakers, presenting on artificial intelligence, they will always start from the future. Today with you, I would like to start instead from the past, which is over 100 years ago, and start with a story that is from Thomas Edison, that we all know, that is the inventor of the light bulb. And when he had this idea, darkness had never been brighter since he invented it. So what brings in common, what he has in common with the era that we are actually living of the artificial intelligence? He was not the first one that actually was working on inventing the light bulb. There were already many inventors that were out there trying to do it. But what he did, he identified the right metal conductor, the copper. He created the right infrastructure to bring the electricity in the homes. And lastly, what he did was creating a proper process for creating vacuum in the bulb. So others were already doing it. But what he did was seeing what everyone else was seeing, but think what nobody else had thought. And I think that now that we're thinking of bringing artificial intelligence into our institutions, could be inspirational, because we should be looking also and trying to do in a better way. And this was his sentence. There's a better way for doing it, do it, find it. A little bit about the scenario, and is around the innovation in the healthcare space. I think there's so many trends that we have been hearing around the innovation in the digital space, and how this is helping actually addressing some of the key challenges, such aging of the population, many chronic diseases that we were discussing, and of course, now that we're going to see the impact of such a huge amount of information that has an impact on the clinicians. They have to keep up the pace with all the information and the daily activities. Pharmaceutical industry is playing an important part, and we've seen recently the top pharma players investing into digital healthcare solution, in software as services, And of course, this links to an important thing that relates to the data. There are some barriers that needs to be addressed, that we need to go get above. And these barriers includes for sure the safety and the security for the patient, but at the same time, this also links to the fact around the adoption of all this innovation, because it's the adoption, as we see with medication, for example, when a new treatment, a new clinical guidelines normally is implemented, is put in place, it takes more than 10 years to become routine and to become daily practices. So how can we overcome these barriers to bring this more close to the patient? So, conscious of where we are, I wanted to introduce you a concept that actually was introduced in this book, AI in Clinical Practice, A Guide to Artificial Intelligence in Digital Medicine. When I read this book, I found it, it made me think a lot about what's going on. And there's a concept about data nami, which is a sort of tsunami of data. And if we think how overwhelming can be, thinking all the huge amount of data that every day we're able to capture into your institutions. These are coming from patient records. These are coming from the publications, the literature that is over there. And this poses a real challenge. What are we going to do with all this data? Do we have time to analyze all this data? Because there is data that can be analyzed from the electronic health record that can point us that a patient, perhaps we are missing something about potential drug-drug interactions or misdiagnosis that could be there. So I would definitely say that it has a large impact. As Dr. Guerreros was saying, the doubling of medical knowledge is there, and we've seen it. And what I'm showing here actually is the huge amount of citations in Medline, how these have been growing year over year. So if we have to consider cases in oncology, as we were thinking as well, and of course, having access to all this information, it becomes crucial if you want to bring the patient at the center. But at the same time, we need to ask this question that is, how can we handle all this data nami of information? I already mentioned the implications on how the data nami can have an impact on the secondary data that are coming from the electronic health record. There are many solutions out there. Technologies like the OMOP, which is a way to capture the different elements from the reports that are written into the electronic healthcare system. So data is becoming the new crude oil for medicine. If we are able to analyze the data, if we are able to identify patterns, this will link also to what Dr. Alfredo was saying related to the pharmacogenomics, pharmacogenetics that is over there. So for sure, we need to find a better way to manage in medicine. Also, there's a huge impact on the clinical research overall, so that we can access to all this relevant information that will be necessary to do when we're looking also at more clinical research. So, how are we going to handle this? Of course, there is technology there to help us and all the huge amount of data. And we've seen in the past 2 years an explosion, no? How this has grown. So if you remember, 3-4 years ago, when we were attending conferences, medical conferences, we were speaking a lot about machine learning. And then we moved, 2 years ago, there was the boom of GPT-4, ChatGPT. And then we saw coming the RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. But now we also see AI agents. I don't know, many of you are familiar with the AI agents, actually can complete very complex tasks and analysis. So we will see this growing and growing. And the impact, even, for example, doing one step back around the clinical trials, the digital twins that can be used as well in, during trials. So for sure, technology is there. But then the question is all about technology? Or do we need, how are we going to train these algorithms? What's the foundation behind the technology? So the opportunity comes from the artificial intelligence, for sure. And I want to just change a little bit, going more on something that is more about a trend. Do we trust AI? Can we trust AI? And what is trust in this sense? This that I'm presenting to you, it's ZS Future of Health Survey that has been launched globally and has involved physicians from the primary care and patients. And they have asked them exactly the same questions, whether they trust AI or not. Funnily enough, depending on where you are, there is different level of confidence. So in India, 97% of primary care physicians believe what AI will say. Okay. The same is in China, very, very high. We see on the other side that, for example, in the States and in Germany, they will be more reluctant in accepting whatever AI will say. But it's also interesting to see that how with patients it changes. No? Again, in China, it's very strong. In India, and then we see that the lowest point is in the United Kingdom. So trust in AI, it has also an implication where you are, where you live, but also about rules. I don't know, many of you have been hearing this, but we keep hearing more frequently. It's important creating responsible AI solutions. Responsible AI solutions. And then we should ask ourselves, well, of course, there are laws in many countries that now are regulating how AI tools should be created also to avoid bias. And we know very well in the healthcare space how important is reducing the bias as much as possible, because we want to offer an inclusive healthcare that doesn't just look at a specific subset, that can keep into account different ethnicities, different genetic variation that might be in there. And that's the kind of depersonalized healthcare that we want to offer. So yesterday, I went on ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT, create for me an image of a physician staring a chest X-ray, and that's it. This is an unsupervised, so whatever is the output that ChatGPT has given us, nobody will control. Can we trust something that nobody will control? Now, you all are expert doctors. I'm not going to point at anyone. But the first thing that I did with my modest studies of anatomy as a pharmacist is that this looking from the wrong side. The heart should be on the other side. It will be looking, right? This X-ray. So when there is unsupervised tools, can we trust tools that are not supervised, that there is not this feedback for improving it? So here I would like to introduce another concept, which is the difference between the black box and the glass box. When we approach artificial intelligence solutions, and we don't have access to resources that actually sit behind, that are being utilized for creating the output, the response that we're going to get, this looks more like a black box. We don't know what is in there. So let's go back to Thomas Edison. There's a better way for doing it. Let's find it. And I think that a better way for using generative AI tools is shifting from black boxes to glass boxes, where we can see what's in there, where we can see the evidence-based content, the content that has been utilized, where I can access. So recently I came across a publication that was speaking about the efficiency. How can we implement efficiently AI solution in the healthcare space? So I'm going to apologize in advance, or you might want to say that you like it at the end. I entirely made it up. This is not scientifically proven or valid. But just wanted to represent here what I was reading in an article that was presented recently. So how can we define the efficacy, the effectiveness of the AI adoption in the medical space, I would say? Well, this is the formula today I'm proposing you, which is T plus U plus C elevated to CO. What does it mean? The first letter is T, is about trust. The trust comes through transparency. If we can have access in a transparent way to the solutions, to the way a tool has been trained and prepared, this just increases the way we can put our confidence and trust in it. Differently from the black box. In the white box, we trust because we can see. The second point, the second letter, is about U, usability. What does it mean, usability? In that sense, in generative AI solutions, also having the possibility for giving feedback and keep asking questions, follow-up questions, it's a way to make it more useful. AI solutions are not there to disrupt the workflow that we have when we are in front of the patients. Speaking as a pharmacy, if I'm doing a medication review, is not there to to change the way I'm doing it. It's there to help me doing it. The third one is collaboration. We heard many times nowadays, AI won't substitute the doctors, but the doctors that don't use AI will substitute the ones that actually don't. But the point is that generative AI tools there to help, not to substitute us. And that we should look at the collaboration. So we should look a lot at the user interface. How is this generative AI tool actually helping me in saving time? So we were having a conversation yesterday with Dr. Guerrero. He was saying, on average, we have 15 minutes to evaluate, even less sometimes, right? to evaluate the patient. Is this tool going to help me? But then, in my view, there is the most important part of this formula, which is the content, which shall be evidence-based. Because if the output that a generative AI tool gives us is not coming from validated sources, is not updated, is not current, it is not evidence-based, well then, can we trust the AI? Can we trust the AI? So I want to see references. If AI, generative AI, suggests me that I should follow a specific protocol, what are the references? Which one is the latest publication available? Which one is the clinical guideline that sits behind this? What's the rationale? And that's what makes the difference when we are evaluating any generative AI solution. So here's my story, which is very simple. The best AI tools should not be black boxes, should be partners. That's what we should look for. Generative AI tools should be our partners as clinicians. On top of this, there are solutions that integrate with the electronic health record, so would help us in capturing more quickly data points, diagnosis, or from the anamnesis that you will be running, and clinical decision support solutions supported by artificial intelligence. They play a crucial role to come across the barriers and also maximizing the value. Because there is something that we have not spoken yet, that is the actual value. I imagine that you also as leaders in your institutions have also to keep in mind the financial impact that this solution can actually bring. Can this solution help you avoiding prescribing unnecessary tests or discharging your patient sooner rather than later, or improving in a more efficient way the surgery procedures that you're doing? So these tools also have a way to help on the return on investment that is there. The biggest one is time. We know it's time to give time back to the clinicians, for sure. And I was just, I think that that's a problem that is internationally we see globally as a trend. Now, we've spoken about generative AI. And I mentioned before one that for sure you know, that is GPT, ChatGPT, which is called, I'm going to use the acronym, LLM, Large Language Model. On top of the large language model, there is another technology that goes above the large language model that you know very well, that is DeepSeek or ChatGPT, which is called RAG, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. What it is? Retrieval Augmented Generation. I'm going to make a very, very simple example that we all, as fellow university students, as you were mentioning, we were studying on books, never on copies, only on original books. Would you imagine when we had to do the test, the exams, in front of our professors? We had our books closed. I had my Goodman and Gilman pharmacology book. It was 1,837 pages that I had to prepare for my pharmacology exam back then. Can you imagine if we could have our exam with the book open in front of our professor? Well, RAG technology is this. And I'm going to show you how really is. So, this is the technology that we have adopted in Elsevier to develop our solution. At the bottom here, you will see LLM, which is Large Language Model. And is what you see into any other generative AI solutions that have been trained with clinical content, but then we talk about how updated the content is. The retrieval augmented generation, instead, is the paradigm for created content that can be trusted. And this goes back to our equation on how can we adopt and implement effective and efficient generative AI solution in our institutions. So what happens, and we're going to run some examples, is that when we create a prompt, a question into the system, what the system will do, it will not go directly into the large language model that is the generative AI. Actually, first, we'll understand the question. You know very well, as the masters at asking questions during anamnesis. Depending on the questions that you ask, you will get different answers from the patients. And we need to make sure that we ask the right questions. So, once the system understands the question, it gets into the letter R, retrieve. So, for example, if I'm asking of the non-small cell cancer, lung cancer, the system will go into the guidelines, the clinical guidelines. It will go into the latest publication. It will go into the books part, and will create all this additional content that will be brought by an augmentation, so it is augmented. So if we ask one question, then it brings together the proper information into the large language model that generates the response. This is the concept that links to taking an exam with the open books. Because basically, is once we ask the question, the RAG system takes all the books that are appropriate for the response that we're looking for, brings in front of the large language model, and this helps in what? In making sure that the response generated, it's a response that we can trust. Because at the end, it will validate the citations. It will be checking on toxicity, bias check that can be there. And will be doing the check to try to reduce at minimum as possible any potential hallucinations that might occur. And then we're going to show something about a supervised AI. We in Elsevier have implemented thumbs up, down button, so that if a response given by the clinical key AI solution doesn't provide a satisfied response, this will immediately go to a scientific team which does the peer reviewing of all the articles and so on. It will be clinically validated, which is fundamental in this sense. And that's what we've built, a robust evaluation framework. And that's again the difference between black box and glass box. Making sure that if there are impacts also on the quality and also from a safety perspective, this can be human, it can be reviewed by humans. Because many solutions, they generate responses and these are not supervised. Let's go back to the doctor standing in front of an X-ray and nobody told ChatGPT, this is wrong, it should be the other way around. Okay, so before we jump, I would like to demo, supported by Dr. Guerrero, Clinical Key AI, but I just want to point you to different things that we'll be looking into Clinical Key AI. So the first thing is about it's about the question, okay? And an important thing is that with our solutions, it's possible to type also in every languages, so in Spanish it's possible. Of course, this will be linking to journals or articles that are in English, but still, it will be provided the response. So the first point is about the question. And you can see showing answers for what should I do? So it's a way to confirm that understanding the question. What happened? Perhaps are there any questions? Any thoughts? Okay, so we have the next. Okay, thank you, Carolina. The second important thing, so let's keep in mind our formula. T, trust, plus usability, okay, collaboration and content. The trust comes and usability from the fact that I can get additional information here, but also comes from the fact that I can access to the references. And lastly, the full text references and the follow-up questions. And this has to do with usability that I was mentioning. So we're now ready to go with a few examples that we have prepared. Caro? Okay. Welcome to a glass box. This is what we have, a transparent generative AI, evidence-based content tool to support you and your colleagues answering the critical questions. So this is actually a case that has been presented to me. Can I encourage you to step up, if you don't mind? So yesterday, actually, I had the possibility of discussing and meeting him to discuss, introduce some of the solutions. And if you don't mind, can we mention this? Can I invite you to stand up and tell us, or even sitting, what was about this case?
Este es un paciente varón de 50 años que se le realiza una CEPRE y tiene una perforación tipo 2. Luego de la perforación tipo 2, el paciente cursa con una colección intraabdominal y entra en sepsis. Inicia un tratamiento inicial y a los 6-7 días presenta una pancreatitis aguda asociada a una colecistitis aguda gangrenada. Entra a sala de operaciones, le hacen colecistectomía, se le cambia el antibiótico meropenem, 2 gramos cada 8 horas, y el paciente evoluciona en forma estacionaria. Le tuvimos que iniciar NPT porque nunca estuvo competente en la nutrición enteral, y justo ayer cuando nos visitaron planteé el problema para ver cuál sería el plan de trabajo. Justo ayer íbamos a tener una junta médica con el paciente para valorar el siguiente paso. Ya tiene 4 semanas con nosotros, está con NPT 10 días, no es competente todavía el tubo digestivo para una nutrición enteral. Y esas fueron las recomendaciones que nos dio la inteligencia artificial del Elsevier, ¿no? Nosotros ayer en la Junta Médica hemos decidido ya suspender el antibiótico porque tiene 4 semanas de tratamiento y ya los marcadores de inflamación están negativos. Entonces hemos iniciado competencia del tubo digestivo, se le ha colocado una nueva sonda nasoduodenal. Hay una compresión extrínseca en la segunda porción del duodeno por la colección, que felizmente está reduciendo, está evolucionando favorablemente. No hemos tenido evidencia de ningún germen positivo en los cultivos que le hemos hecho, los que se obtuvieron de sala y los cultivos periféricos. Y el paciente ahorita está evolucionando bien, ¿no? Pero me parece súper interesante que las recomendaciones que nos ha dado el Elsevier son bastante congruentes con lo que estamos decidiendo nosotros, ¿no?
Thank you so much. Thank you. And sorry, it was unsolicited, and I appreciate it. So I wanted to show you a few things about the case, actually. So as you can see, we have when the content was last updated, and he was really impressed when he saw that actually the content over there for meropenem has been updated less than a month ago, which is important. So if you are using ChatGPT, okay, we have mentioned it, no? So let's keep mentioning it. I would encourage you, just go in there and type, when was the last time that you have been trained on medical knowledge? The latest information, it's back to 2023. So it's been 2 years that all the recent information has not been added. So let's think of what Dr. Guerrero was saying about the doubling of the medical knowledge. Every 73 days, it doubles. How much are we missing in there? And this is what actually we're impressed that was so updated. Okay, thank you, Carolina. Perhaps we can swap to another example. And to the bottom, Carolina, please. No? Okay. This is T3B. Thank you. Before I invite Dr. Guerreros to share one of his examples as a pneumologist. We spoke about, he said there were, during the multidisciplinary team, there was the review of 19 patients, which is a very time-consuming process because, of course, the evaluation of the patient has to be done in a very carefully way, having in mind the latest. Carolina, what happened? No, Chrome, please. Thank you. So here's another case of a potential evaluation that could be done during multidisciplinary team for a patient with prostate cancer. Okay, so here, patient, 65 years, diagnosis with prostate cancer, T3B, in treatment. So why are we adding metformin? Because of course, patients are not planets. Patients are galaxies. There's so much around, okay? And if we consider what polypharmacy is, and we need to take into account all the different medication, well, generative AI solutions can help us looking and think into potential interaction at the cytochrome, how the drugs are actually metabolized. So here we were adding in treatment with metformin 500 milligrams, and also we were presenting the real case So again, this could help in speeding up the process for during the multidisciplinary team. We're going to jump to the last one, Carolina, please. Ok, ¿cuáles son las opciones de tratamiento? Gracias. Doctor Guerrero, por favor.
Bueno, este es el caso de un paciente que ha sido diagnosticado con cáncer de pulmón no microcítico en etapa 3B. Las opciones para este tratamiento incluyen quimio concurrente, inmunoterapia con durvalumab y terapias dirigidas según mutaciones específicas que hoy día son posibles en los pacientes que tienen mutaciones tipo KRAS, que es importante para considerar efectos secundarios como esofagitis y neumonitis. Entonces, lo que explica es que la quimio debe estar basada en platino, en cisplatino o combinada con carboplatino más paclitaxel. Habla sobre la posibilidad del inhibidor de PDL1, también osimertinib, que es otro biológico cuando tienes mutaciones EFGR, es decir, todas las posibilidades de combinaciones del tratamiento para este paciente de manera personalizada. Además, tienes la posibilidad de seguir repreguntando acerca de las condiciones del paciente.
And here is a case actually of the follow-up question. Carolina, can you please stop? If you can scroll up, please, a little bit. Okay, here, please. I would like you to show the thumbs up and thumbs down. And this has to deal with the formula about the trust and also the usability is where we give the feedback. So every time a clinician puts the thumbs down, this goes through a very structured and serious process of feedback where the guidelines will be reviewed, why this answer was given, and we will involve specialists to making sure that we're addressing potential challenges. Okay. Thank you, Carolina. If we could go back to the presentation, I'm going to finish. Okay. So just summarizing. I hope I have not bothered you. I have more offered the opportunity to think about some food for thought. Ends here. I think that there are two, when we are thinking of how can we bring generative AI in our institution, we should be looking at many aspects. And one for sure is having the capacity, which is the technology. But technology, if it's not supported by strong evidence-based content, it won't give us the right support. And that's exactly what we have built. Clinical KI is there to support you and your colleagues at the point of care, and that's the best way we see generative AI impacting on patients' life. And gracias. No, no, no.